Session at 6:04. I have just one report of action taken in closed session, section 3.2. The board discussed the terms of a student matter, item 2.5, regarding student number 18-03, and voted to uphold the stipulated expulsion agreement for that student. 3.3 attendance roll call. President Elkishan is present. Clerk Reed, absent. Trustee Lopez, absent. Trustee Maxfield?
Here.
And Trustee Galindo?
Here.
Great. So can everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I just need to know if there are changes on the agenda. Great, so I'm just looking for a motion to accept and adopt tonight's agenda.
So you like that?
Yeah. All in favor? Okay. The district-wide mission statement: we are a collaborative, culturally rich educational community where a rigorous and innovative curriculum prepares our students to be successful contributors to our global society. 4.0, recognitions. The Board of Education recognizes students, employees, or members of the community who have received recognition for academic or athletic achievement or who have made significant contributions of any kind to the district. We're going to recognize one individual tonight and another group of students. So first we're going to start with Mr. John Verts. Should I just talk from here? Yeah. Okay. I'll go.
What do you want me to do?
Come on.
Okay. You know, these shoes, though.
I know, none of them.
I know, you're most of the kids going there, so.
So first of all, I want to say that a school cannot be successful if we don't have community members, parents, teachers who are fully engaged and come in and help with all kinds of sorts of things through the school. John has been a community volunteer, and Heather Brooks wrote a little statement because she couldn't be here tonight, so I'm going to read it. And you didn't want me to do anything long, but I think I need to encompass everything you've done. So just hold tight, okay? All right. John Verts is an aerospace engineer who formerly worked for Lockheed Martin and the European Space Agency. Our science teacher, Heather Brooks, met him through Antonio Castro, NVC engineering instructor, where he was helping his NVC students with C-STEM solar curriculum. She told John that our Boys and Girls Club had a new STEM lab with little or no knowledge of how to use the things in it, such as the 3D printer, etc. Following that conversation, John reached out to our Boys and Girls Club and has revolutionized their STEM lab. He works with Ms. Brooks to support our junior-senior elementary school engineering club and all of our CTE classes and advisory panels. He has supported 77 students from Mr. Grove, Ms. Warner, and Ms. Brooks' STEAM program on a variety of STEM topics. He also works closely with our ACE program to support our junior high and 9th grade students to help develop ACE STEM curriculum. John volunteers every week to work with every age student at Calistoga through one of these 3 locations. He fixed the laser CNC machine for free so we could use it again on our campus. He traveled with the science team to both STEAM and Engineering Hovercraft Tech Challenge competitions this school year. When the students were breaking down and things weren't working right at both events, John pulled through at the last minute in a matter of seconds to save all of their projects. He has also worked with Antonio Castro and Heather Brooks on upcoming Intro to Engineering boot camps for our students this summer and will volunteer as well. He helped our students win awards at the Tech Challenge Engineering Competition and has created a huge excitement for engineering in Calistoga. In one day, we had 60 students from 4th to 12th grade sign up for engineering summer camp because of his support. Ms. Brooks said John is one of the most kind-hearted and extremely intelligent individuals that she's ever met, And Calistoga is especially lucky to have him in all of our students' lives to inspire them to grow and to find young engineers. Heather, sorry she couldn't be able to attend this evening, but wanted John to know how much he means to the team, and they are very thankful for his support. On behalf of the school district, all the students, all the teachers in our community, thank you so much for your dedication to our
It's my
students.
pleasure. Really,
It's
that's my
because
pleasure.
of people like you
Yeah,
that we
really.
excel, so thank you.
Thank you, John. Just for my kids.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Okay, there's more.
Sorry, so we have some students here tonight who got certificates of excellence but missed our last board meeting. So I'm going to have you guys all come up and just stand right here when I call your name. Okay, so we have Isao Cortez. Miguel Valentin. We have Luis Tolar. Denise Trujillo. And Diego Cortez. And I think somebody else snuck in while we, is there one other student here? No, yeah?
I'm still having them signed from the year. There it is.
While she signs that, just to let you know, there's 165 students in junior high. And to be chosen student of the week, we only choose about 2 or 3 students per week. So it's quite an honor to be chosen by your teachers.
Open it a little bit. Oh, that's perfect. Good job. Congratulations. Happy Sunday. You all are welcome to stay, but by no means have to. So, just wanted to let you guys know. Okay, 5 public comments. Public business from the floor on non-agendized items. So this portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the board on any item regarding board business that is not on the agenda. Without taking action or entering into dialogue with the public, the board members may briefly respond to statements made or ask clarifying questions about topics posed by the public. Your matter may be referred to administration, and individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. So I wonder if there's anybody who wants to talk to us about non-agendized items tonight. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Then we'll move on to 6.1, public hearing. As an elected governor's body of Calistoga Joint Unified School District, the Board of Trustees conducts public hearings for the purpose of maintaining open communication with parents, students, and residents of Calistoga community and school district. Through the public hearing process, trustees seek ideas, viewpoints regarding the efficiency and quality of district-sponsored programs or any other areas of the operations of the district and its schools. The trustees believe that open communication is a key element and ongoing process of district and school and program improvement. So we go straight then to 6.2? Okay. So local control accountability plan, the LCAP. We're going to open the public hearing at 6:15 and start with comments from the staff.
Thank you. Good evening. So in your packet is the full LCAP. I think this year it is 125 pages long. And so tonight I just wanted to give an overview to you so the public can also hear it and you can ask questions if you have them. So as you know from the last 4 years, the state determines 8 priorities that every single school district in California must include within their LCAP. We have 3 LCAP goals in our district. We condensed them just this year from 4 last year. And you can see in parentheses there, all 8 of our priorities are addressed within those 3 goals. And we have those goals posted in every single classroom in the district, all of the offices, and as you know, we display them at every single board meeting. So in the very first part of the LCAP, there's 2 new pages. And Maureen's going to elaborate later on the budget, but it is an overview for parents, just so parents can understand the budget rather than try to wade through 125 pages. And then the next section is our annual update, so that gives the progress that we made this year. And part of the annual update is there's several sections that we have to address. And the first is, what is the best progress that we made this year? So I'm just going to briefly read through these, and if you have questions, you're welcome to ask them. So obviously one of the things that we're very proud of is that we had a 100% graduation rate last year, so that means that we are scoring blue on the California School Dashboard. We also significantly increased our college preparedness. College preparedness is a new indicator on the dashboard this year, so we're very proud of that. Our inter-assessment results indicate that our students are making progress at both schools in English language arts and then progress in math at the elementary school. You're going to get another update on that in the fall because we just finished the inter-assessments again. We had a new academic intervention teacher this year. She provides small group instruction for our students in grades 1 through 3. She focused on literacy. Denise Hughes is actually retiring, but we will retain that position. And the positives, the intent was to intervene for students as early as possible, and so our retention rates significantly dropped in the primary grades, in grades 1 through 3, and we directly attribute that to the extra assistance they received from Denise. And then also this year, we're very proud of the progress that we added strategic math classes. A preliminary analysis of that data shows that that is helping our students at the high school, junior, senior high school level in math. We're also So in addition to the greatest progress, we're also required to do an analysis of what our greatest needs are for this next school year. And obviously, as you heard when we reviewed the school dashboard results, we still need to increase academic performance in both ELA and math in all of our students. Most specifically, in English language arts, our students with disabilities decreased from the orange level to red, which is very low on the dashboard. In math, our all-student group, our English learners, and our socioeconomically disadvantaged students also decreased. They went from yellow, which is medium, down to orange, which is low. Our Hispanic students also showed that same decrease, and our white students decreased, so they went from blue to green. And again, concern is our students with disabilities also decreased to red this year. We are also concerned we have a fairly good suspension rate. It's low in comparison to the state and other schools in the county. However, our students with disabilities, their rate did go up a little bit compared to last year. The state requires us to pay attention to any gaps, and they consider a performance gap to be more than 2 levels. So in English language arts, our students with disabilities are at the red level, and that is 3 levels below our white students. So that's more than that 2-level performance gap. In ELA, there's also a significant performance gap for all students, low-income students, English learners, and Hispanic students. So those students either dropped 2 levels or 3 levels below our white students, who in that particular area are performing at very high. And then in math, our all students, low-income students, English learners, and Hispanic students also decreased to the orange level, while our white students were achieving at the green level. So there is obviously a performance gap. So we're obviously wanting to do the best we can for all of our students. We want to meet the needs of our low-income English learner foster youth. Those are what are called unduplicated students in the LCAP, or students with high needs. So we want to continue the services that we implemented this year into next year. We believe that we need to continue and sustain those special services. So in the LCAP, we would be supporting at the elementary school our low-achieving students, again, with an academic intervention specialist. This position will be done by somebody else on our staff. Lauren Kurtz is one of our new teachers and actually specializes in academic intervention. So she's transferring into that position since Denise is retiring, and Title I pays for this particular position. So this position will continue to serve primary students, so students in grades K through 3 next year, focusing again on literacy skills. And then at the junior senior high school, we still would like to improve our math scores with our students. So we are going to retain the extra math teacher that we hired this year to provide strategic math classes again next year. And again, our data is showing that that is making improvement in student achievement. So I want to let you know that those are not the only things that we're going to be doing next year. We're going to continue lots of other programs and services. However, we are not going to be adding the number of services that we added this year simply because it's not in the budget. So I'm pleased that we are able to continue the things that we wanted to do this year. We're just not going to add a lot of new things. So under Goal 1, which is academic success for our students, we want to continue with the special day class position. That was also new this year. That position serves kids who have significant disabilities in the classroom. Our teacher is doing a particularly great job. She basically started the entire program herself. The second is we are planning to pilot and purchase new science curriculum, which Michael will be talking about in the future. There are going to be 2 programs piloted this year in grades K through 12. So we'll be coming back to you with recommendation to purchase science curriculum later in the course of the year. We want to continue with our expansion of the College and Career Center. As you know, that went from a 0.6 to a full-time position this year. And we want to continue expanding services to all students in grades K through 12, not just the junior senior high school. This is new. Providing training on response to intervention. That's a mistake. It should say the junior senior high school. This past year, we provided response to intervention. I'm getting confused here. Response to intervention has not been done in the past at the elementary school, so we'll be providing that for grades K through 6. And then for all of the staff in the district, we're going to provide culturally responsive teaching. That will not occur until April. I was getting ahead of myself because on Goal 2, We implemented restorative practices at the elementary school this year for grades K through 6. And it's in the LCAP to provide that same training for grades 7 through 12, as well as include any staff that were not trained at the elementary school. So for example, some of our office staff, our site secretaries were not trained, our food services staff were not trained, and some of our facility staff. So anybody that's interacting with kids, we would like to have attend this training so that everybody's on the same page. And then under goal 3, increasing parent engagement, we implemented Aries Communication this year, had extremely positive feedback from our staff and our parents. However, there's still parts of the system that we are not using, and we also want to offer more training to parents, just so that they're familiar with it on their end. And then Paula is going to create a template for teachers so that they can each create their own websites and they all have a similar platform. Right now we have some very astute teachers who have gone ahead and created their own platforms, but we'd like to get everybody on this similar platform and using it consistently. So moving forward, those are the things that I believe our budget can sustain, and again, Maureen will expand on that in just a little bit. But moving forward into the following year, there were some priorities from parents, staff, and students that we did not feel we could support this year. So one of them is our counseling services need to be expanded. There were students who were on the wait list for counseling this year. So I've been working with the Up Valley Family Center with Zach Guzik, and he has some ideas about being able to access other agencies to provide some of the counseling. So we'll be able to supplement, hopefully, counseling outside of the district. And then the following year, it's likely that I will be recommending that we add a counselor to our own staff. So we would, in addition to having another person on our staff, we would continue to access some outside services as well. The next is we got lots of feedback about expanding our hospitality CTE pathway, and I think that's a good way to go right now, just given the valley and what the industry is needing. And so I'm hopeful that we'll be able to afford that the following year, and this will be a year of planning ahead. And the last is over and over from the elementary school teachers. They are very supportive of having the K through 3 intervention teacher, but feel that there is still a need for the upper elementary grades. And so I would be advising that we add a position next year, this coming year in 2020-21, to serve grades 4 through 6 in both ELA and math. Any questions about what I've written in there? Okay, again, Maureen's going to cover the budget in just a bit, and she'll be mentioning some of the things that I've also discussed. Thank you.
So no comments from the public? No more comments from the board?
I do.
I thought we almost made it.
Yes, I'll try to keep it in, but I get to catch up myself. So our students that are in the strategic math class, I've noticed that they tend in that strategic math class, they're scoring at about 80%, but yet they still have the common core, which they're struggling at a D or failing. How does that balance on the scale? Because obviously, when they go back to where they fell off, they're getting it, they're understanding the concepts, and they're scoring high in that class. But then, when they go back to their common core, they're still missing them steps that they check out at. Every student has a different scenario. But on the scale of justice, how does that weigh out?
I couldn't answer that without talking to the teachers.
Okay. Because that's troubling, because these kids, obviously there was an area in math where they didn't understand it, they didn't comprehend, there was zero retention. And so they were struggling in that class, identify the struggling students. They get placed in strategic math. Now with that D, if they're an avid, they're not allowed to participate in sports and stuff like that. Not only that, but that weighs them down G requirement, so.
Are you talking about one particular student, or have you seen data on all of the students?
That are
What data did you see that you're looking at that shows you
areas.
that they?
Areas.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand who you're looking at to see the disparity between the two grades. Was it 5 students? Was it 10
It was
students?
about
Was
10 to 15 students.
And you access their areas?
Yes,
Okay.
a lot of them in the tutoring that we were doing, Wednesday
Okay.
tutoring, to find out the areas where they were struggling at. And this was a common theme, maybe about 8 or 10 of them, and some high schoolers as well. As we start to, during football eligibility issues, we want to make sure our kids are, so I found that to be an issue. If we're trying to lift them up, why are you weighing them down? I mean, could we merge the two? I mean, I just, to me, that seems like there needs to be some type of,
Are you saying merge the two?
I don't know, I'm just saying it needs to be some type of consideration. We're weighing down the students. If they're obviously in need of strategic math, then that should, what do we do?
I would be happy to talk to the teachers about it and come back to you.
Thank you. And so the degrees, how is that determined? Because our white students are at 38% proficient in math. That's in our SART report. How is that at a high level? They're struggling there too.
Remember, the state is, the dashboard is based on status and change. So you earn credit points by changing, by increasing or decreasing, you lose. So it's measuring both. So where's your status, and then how much you can change, either up or down. So it's not necessarily just based on the score that you achieve, like the old system. It's based on both.
But I think when we see the scores of the most recent tests come back at this, we're
They'll
probably
come
going to
back
see
with a
some
ballpark.
good, yeah.
So we'll have both summative and formative assessment data for you in the fall.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we're all done, then we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:31. And then we are going to open the next public hearing on the 1920 budget at 6:32.
Good evening. So I thought I'd go over the May revisions of the governor's budget. In January, the governor comes out with his proposal. In May, he comes out with a revision based on how the state economy has done since January. So in May, the governor said, hey, the economy looks a little bit better in May than it did in January. So we're predicting this is going to be a pretty good year. However, we still need to look curiously out at the out years, and we need to pay attention to a slowdown in our economic activity in the out years. One way we look at that is through the gross domestic product. Right now, we're a little bit of 3%. By 2021, economists are saying that that number is going to go down to either just above 1% or it could fall below, which would then put us into a recession. So we want to keep just, I look at that number, and when I go to my budget workshops, they always talk about the gross domestic product and keeping an eye out on that percentage and what it's coming in at. There's a Prop 98 guarantee for 1920 at 81.1 billion, a $3 billion increase from 1819. This doesn't mean a lot for our district in particular because we are a property tax funded district, but nonetheless, there's a $3 billion increase to the Prop 98 guarantee. This means that COLA is going to be funded at, I think, 3.24%, which is what was predicted. And nothing on top of COLA is being funded for other school districts that are not community funded districts. So COLA is pretty much it. In years past, we've seen lots of one-time discretionary dollars, sometimes quite extensive for school districts. there are no more one-time discretionary dollars in the governor's budget. That was something that our former governor really liked to do because that's how he kind of balanced the previous year with the current year. This governor sees things a little bit differently, and so there are no one-time funds. Special education is a big topic right now at the state level. They're looking at a 21% increase in 19-20 funding for special ed versus 18-19 funding. We'll see if that passes. There's still a lot of support with the big threes, the Assembly and the Senate and the governor. We'll see if that passes going forward. It might be somewhere around 21%, might be a little lower. And then one of the big things the governor wanted to do for employers of counselors and CalPERS was to support that liability that we all have, which is really driving up our payroll costs. And so it was really important to the governor that he do some kind of employer compensation reduction for employers. So it looks like we will have a little bit of a decrease in what our employer contribution going forward for our STRS members and PERS members is going to be. So now with our district here at Calistoga, we make some assumptions when we do budgets, and first assumption is our revenue. And so we're looking at possibly a 4% increase for our total revenue for property tax income. That's about $57,000 from Sonoma County and $505,000 from Napa County. We do get income from both counties. EPA, which is that education protection account, that is still going to be funded at $200 per ADA, and that's for us because we're a community funded district. That's what that is. For other districts, it's a big percentage of your income. Special education property taxes, right now we're funded through our special ed, we're funded through our property taxes because we are a community funded district. So we get about $465,000 a year for our special ed funding in property taxes. That's going to see a little bit of an increase, about $35,000. And then we still get some revenue limit funding. It's called the LCFF Hold Harmless for community funded districts, and that's at about $508,000. And just a little reminder, I don't know if you remember, but way back when LCFF started, that number was supposed to be for our district a little over $1 million, but the state said, hey, community funded districts, you're going to give some fair share back to the state. So they took away almost half of that, and so we're at about $580,000. Total revenue limit in LCFF increases of about $598,000. Federal revenue just decreased in Title II by about $1,700, Title I about $19,500, and then we had a lot of Title I and Title II carryover in this budget, and so that will all be spent and going away. So all in all, our federal revenues are going to decrease by about $23,000. Oops, sorry. Special education federal funding is remaining stagnant, so we're not going to see any increase or decreases there. Other state revenues, we get one-time revenues in 18-19 of mandated cost revenue. That was that one-time discretionary funding that I talked about is not in the 19-20 budget. This year for our district it was about $145,000, so we will not see that in 19-20. And then we received two different one-time funds from the 18-19 budget in this year's budget 18-19 for low-performing student block grants. I don't know if you recall, but back in March we brought this forward to the board. We're going to use a lot of this money for tutoring. So we have about $27,000 that's going to carry over into 19-20 that we'll use, but that's one-time funding. We won't see that again. We're just going to get that one $27,000 allocation. And then classified professional development. There's a little bit of money in our budget right now for classified employees that are working on the safety plan to get professionally developed in order to develop that safety plan. So that's about $6,400, and that's a one-time fund in 18-19. We won't see it in 19-20. And then, because of all the fires, there was a property tax backfill that our former governor had in the 18-19 budget. It was about almost $34,000 for our district. That's also projected to come in the 19-20 budget as well, but it hasn't been solidified yet. And they didn't talk about it today in my little report that I got for what is going to be passing. But we may see it again, but this was a one-time allocation, so we kind of don't book that money until we know for sure we're going to get it. When the money's in the bank, that's when I put it in the budget. And then CTIC grants, is ending for the district on June 30th. CTIG brought in about $81,000, and we have applied through a consortium through Napa County Office of Ed for 1920. So that's where we will be spending our CTIG dollars. We'll be doing that through Napa County. Special education state mental health has a decrease of about $10,000, and then all in all state revenue decreased by about $405,000. The district, in order to operate certain programs, has to make contributions from our unrestricted dollars to certain programs. So I just wanted to point out what those programs are and what we're contributing. I'll start from the bottom and work my way up. CES has an outdoor education where we take students to Yosemite and to the Marin Headlands every year, and that's the allocation for both 1819 and 1920 that you see there. Routine restricted maintenance, because we do receive state funding for our construction projects and modernization, we have to make sure that 3% of our general fund budget is actually being put towards maintenance of buildings and maintenance of taking care of our buildings and things that are attached to our buildings, and so we're a little bit above that 3%, but this year was 582, next year it's 605. Title I, we have been fully funded for the last couple of years. Next year, because we're losing almost $20,000 in Title I funding, we're going to need to contribute a little bit to fund that one intervention teacher that we have over at the elementary school, so we're going to give about $10,000 to Title I. And then special education, the big one, we're going to talk about this a little bit more going forward, but we're going from 1.6 this year in 1819 to about 1.8, and special education is now about a $2.5 million program for our district. Assumptions on our expenditures, salary and benefits. We have step increases in the 1920 budget of about $158,000. Certificated 120, classified about 37.7. And that's about 1.6% for certificated on all of the salaries involved, and about 1.8% for classified on all the salaries involved. So step increases tend to be about 1.5% to 2%, so we're right in that range. And then all the staffing changes are part of the 1920 budget, and by that I mean we have a lot of retirees that are retiring. Their vacancies are being budgeted in the budget because we're going to assume that there's somebody that's going to come in and replace them. And we kind of tend to, well, what I do is I pick, most people come in at step 10, column 6, so I'll take that salary and that's what I use for all the vacancies, so I can always have some kind of placeholder. That'll all change with first interim, and those are the big staffing changes you see coming to you at first interim. And then 1819, we did finish negotiations with our certificated staff, and those negotiations, all of those salary increases that are the 3% that we are going to hopefully ratify tonight in an agreement are in the 1819 budget as well as the 1920 budget. And then also health insurance was something we also negotiated. Those also have been put into the 1819 and 1920 budget. I wanted the board to take a look at payroll benefits. So for every dollar that we pay out in payroll, about $1.20 is actually the cost to the district for certificated staff members, and about $1.30 is the cost for classified staff members. A lot of that has to do with STRS and PERS, of course, but we also have to pay out Social Security, Medicare, unemployment, and also workers' comp. Projected expenditures in supplies and services. What I do when I roll the budget forward, I take out all those one-time supplies and materials that were in the budget for 1819. I do not rebudget them for 1920. I put in a textbook adoption for K-8 science. We have laptop replacements and Chromebook replacements, and also we established a furniture budget this year so we can start slowly replacing furniture in classrooms. On the services and operating expenditures side, again, one-time services have been removed. 5% increase in utilities. We had a huge increase in our property and liability insurance this year, go figure. And then outside contracts are increasing for special ed. So some of the big ticket items. $30,000 to our property and liability insurance for 1920. Of course, this is all due to not being able to obtain fire insurance, so it really does drive up the cost. There's a lot of companies that don't even underwrite fire anymore. There's an $81,000 increase to textbooks for the K-8 science curriculum. That's about $150 allocated for each student. $47,500 in Chromebook and laptop replacements, and then $20,000 for furniture replacements in 2 classrooms. We have some transfers out to where we support other funds in our district, and 2 of those funds are capital outlay and cafeteria. So this year, we have about a $249,000 transfer going out to cafeteria. Next year, we're going to go up to about $290,000. I really think that both of those numbers are going to change, and they're going to be lower because we're going to work on next year, and this year I already know it's going to be lower than that, so that's a good thing. And then Fund 40, our facilities fund, we have about $90,000 that went out this year, and I just took the COLA and increased it to next year, so we have about $92,000 going out to capital outlay for next year. Special education. Our budgeted expenditures for special ed are a little over $2.5 million. We get about $715,000 between the state and the federal government. That's about 28% of the program. The federal government actually funds us at about 6.4% of the entire program. And then that rest of that 28% comes from the state. We contribute from our unrestricted fund, or general fund, $1.8 million in special ed. This number is only going to continue to increase. One of the things we need to work on as a district is just finding efficient and cost-controlling ways to take care of our students. And hopefully we'll be working on that in the next
When
year.
will that special ed report be made public? The consultant's report?
Probably not until at least August.
We have a few out-of-district placements for special education, and the placement for out-of-district can cost anywhere between $36,000 and $50,000. We do currently have 4 students that are being placed in our adult transition program, and that cost for us next year is $164,000. I did neglect to put one more out-of-district placement for one of our elementary students. That's another $36,000 cost. So we have almost $200,000 that's placing our students out of the district because they get services outside the district that we cannot give them here. Preschool is a program that is actually run through the County Office of Ed, and what they do is off-the-top funding, so they take what the preschool costs to operate, and they take that off the top and charge it out to the school districts. So this year we had about $112,000 annual fee. Next year that fee is going to go up to about $140,000. The entire preschool program had to increase their budget quite a lot because they don't have enough speech teachers, they don't have enough special OT therapists, and all kinds of those services that those preschoolers need. Part of why ours is going up significantly is because we have a very high needs preschooler that will be attending the program as well. So we're going to see about a almost $28,000 increase in our preschool program. Our reserves. This is our preliminary budget, and this is the projection of reserves from 18-19 through 21-22. These numbers will change. They always change. They change with every single little thing we do to our budget, so they are never stagnant. We're looking at about 18.12 ending out this year, and then going through 21-22 at about 20%. And that's not fluctuating a whole lot between 19-20 and 21-22 because we have some things that we talked about in the LCAP earlier, like an intervention teacher, like expanding our culinary arts program, and adding a counselor to our costs in the next couple of years. So that kind of makes that stay a little bit more even rather than growing. Right now we do have some assigned expenditures in our reserves, so we want to put away some money for future STRS and PERS obligations. Currently the STRS obligations liability to school districts is only through 2021. So beyond 2021, we don't know what those percentages are going to increase. So depending on what the state decides to do at that point, we might see huge increases. We might see gradual ones, I don't know, but I can guarantee you that we will see increases in both STRS and PERS. So it's good that we're doing what we're doing right now, if we can put this money away. There's a $75,000 reserve for future technology upgrades and replacements. That was in place when I got here. I've kind of just been keeping that rolling forward. We do have a lot of planning we need to do in the technology arena, so it's a good idea to have some money there that we can use when we get to the point where we're ready to spend that and improve our technology. And then we have some lottery funds that will be going to future site allocations. I'm kind of changing the way everything's been budgeted in the past, and so we're going to use lottery a lot for instructional materials at our school sites. So we'll have that there for the future. And then about $32,000 in our education protection account that will go towards employee salaries next year. So those are our assigned reserves. And this is kind of looking at our ending fund balance and those reserves in a bigger, broader picture. So ending fund balances have components. We have to keep money aside for our revolving cash fund. So we have an $8,000 revolving cash fund that we have to show in our financial statement. We have restricted balances that if we have things like Title I dollars, Title II dollars, anything that has come in as a restricted income, Prop 39 is another good example, that goes into a restricted category. That's not part of our economic reserve. It's just a restricted balance, knowing that we have to spend that going forward at some point. And as you see, we go through the years, we are spending that reserve, that restricted balance down. And then the assignments we just talked about on the previous slide, that's the next thing there, general fund balance reserve for assignments. So those are those categories we talked about on the previous slide. And then our state mandated design for economic uncertainty. This is the 4% that the state says you as a district must keep at least in your reserve. And so those are those amounts. That's that 4% of our total general fund expenditures. And then the rest that we have in reserve sits down in an unassigned and unappropriated amount. So that also contributes towards our economic uncertainty, but it's unassigned, meaning that there are other things you can do with it as long as it is a one-time expenditure. And that's the important part for our district, because if we have to go buy a new bus, if we have to change 3 HVAC units in a year, if we have to have emergency expenditures, we have somewhere to go to be able to do those emergency expenditures during the year. Cash flow is very important, and also having that unappropriated amount down at the bottom be a lot bigger than just 4%. That helps with your cash flow, and that's also a very important thing for a community-funded district. We only see tax payments as a majority in December and April that come in as revenue to the district, so we want to make sure that we do have good, solid cash flow to get us through all of the months of payroll. 1 month of payroll for us is about a little over $1 million. I should have done what our payouts on bills are too, so I'll bring that to the first room so you can see that as well. We probably get close to about 1.5 to 1.6 million a month in what goes out in cash for the district. So again, cash flow is important. That bottom line of the reserve is important, because otherwise we have to short-term borrow, and we have to borrow cash in order to get us through these cycles. And it costs to borrow money, and you also have to pay interest back when you actually borrow the money. Just always want to keep a positive cash flow. Cash is king, as I have always said. And then we have other fund balances within our district. We have Fund 13, which is our child nutrition services. Of course, we contribute a lot to that fund, so we don't leave a lot in that fund at the end of the year. We're only looking at about $1,300 to be left there at the end of 1920. We have a bond fund that will have $203,000 left in it if we enter into contract with architects. So I kind of put that in as an expenditure, but if that doesn't happen next year, it'll fall to the bottom line. Right now, there's about 800 or so thousand sitting in that fund for the purpose of our modernization. Developer fees fund, we have about 300,000 in that fund that will carry into 2021. These are the ending fund balances for the end of 1920. State Facilities Fund, about $421,000. That is a reimbursement of that we got in December of 2017 for projects that we did back in 2012 at the elementary school. I think we've talked about that before. And then capital outlay will have a fund balance of about $454,000. We do have some summer projects that Chris has planned. That's going to cost some money out of that fund, but again, at the end of 1920, it'll be down to $454,000. So the next steps tonight is the preliminary budget hearing. Next Monday will be the final budget adoption along with the LCAP adoption. And then June 15th is when the state is supposed to adopt their state budget. If they don't do this by June 15th, the Assembly members and the Senate members do not get paid, so they, by all assurance, will adopt a budget by June 15th. And then after that, if there's any significant changes between the June 15th budget adoption at the state level and our budget adoption after Monday, because I'm not going to go back and change anything between now and Monday, I have 45 days to bring that back to the board to let you know what those significant changes are, so that's sometime in August. All of these expenditures are also part of the LCAP, so Erin and I work very closely together on the actions and services in the LCAP, and we make sure that things are budgeted accordingly. And that is what I have to present to the board tonight for a 1920 budget hearing. Are there any questions? Very clear. Thank you.
I just realized that's what I'm putting in my phone, so call it whatever. Perfect. Okay, so did we have any comments from the public regarding the budget? Board? Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:55. Perfect. And then we'll move on to 7.1, graduation requirements, will be presented by Michael and Craig. Yeah?
Okay. So the topic of graduation requirements has come up this year. There's been some conversation around is it time to increase our graduation requirements? And over the last couple months, we've had a chance to really look into that. We've had a chance to meet with staff, get their feedback, meet with set administrators, get their feedback, and do some research as to what's happening in the field. And I'm excited to share that with you tonight. The current high school graduation requirements were last adopted in 2009, and they are closely aligned with the California Department of Education's minimum requirements for high school graduation. So if we look at it, in the middle you have the CDE's requirements for high school diploma, and ours on the right, and you can see that they're very closely aligned. The differences are in English, where we require one more than we need. And there's this catch-all category that the state's created called VAPA, which is Visual Arts, Visual and Performing Arts, Foreign Language and CTE. I don't think it's created as a catch-all category, but they only require, the state only requires 1 year of VAPA to graduate. Over the last 5 years or so, school districts throughout our region and the state have begun increasing their graduation requirements to match that of the UC and CSU schools' entrance requirements. The rationale there has been to provide access and opportunity for all. And what's been happening, especially in some of our larger neighbors, is that you get a group of students that's on a UC-CSU track and a group that's not. And you kind of get this de facto tracking, which is not healthy. And I don't think that's our issue here. We don't have that issue, but I still think this is a worthwhile endeavor for us to look at. Should we increase our graduation requirements to meet the US, UC and CSU requirements?
Which is what we call A to G.
Yes. So if you look at the CDE's requirements versus the UC-CSU entrance requirements, here are the differences I tried to highlight in yellow. CDE is at 3 for English, UC is at 4 for English, math 2 and 3. Science, there's only a 2-year requirement to apply for UC, CSU, but it's really a 3-year recommendation if you have 3. Same for social science. And then the big difference really is that VAPA foreign language CTE group, where to apply to university, you need 2 years of foreign language. The state does not require that. And UC, CSU does not have a PE requirement, though the CDE does. So if you put ours on there, you can start to say, okay, so if we're going to do this, what changes would we have to make? And you see that we would have to increase our math requirements from 2 years to 3 years, our science from 2 to 3, and then our foreign language from 0 to 2 years. Those are the spots where we currently do not have UC-CSU compliant graduation requirements. I always like to contextualize our conversations. You don't want to make decisions in a bubble. And so I'll give you some of what's happening regionally. And so if we look at what's happening in Napa Valley Unified and Santa Rosa, you can see that
That was my
This driver's will cut off.
all right, we agree with you already.
Make a change.
Or I can go with that.
Small room. Run the clock.
All right, testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're about there. All right. Thank you, Chris. That was good. You were fast.
You were.
I didn't know where to go. All right. So with our neighbors, you can see that everybody's here is at 4 for English. Napa and Santa Rosa have increased their math to 3. They've left their science at 2. Everybody's been at 3 for social studies. And these two districts have that VAPA at 1 and foreign language at 2 years. And a little further, we look at San Leon and Healdsburg. They're at 4 for English. They've gone to 3 for math. They've gone to that kind of suggested UC-CSU entrance requirement of 3 years for science. They're basically at 3. San Leon's got an odd, they have this half-year humanities requirement that I haven't seen before for social studies. And then this 4, in this category for VAPA, foreign language and CTE, they're requiring a year of VAPA, which is pretty standard, 2 years of foreign language, which makes sense. They're also requiring a year of CTE. So, this is our decision, right? What do we want to do? I can give you my recommendation. I do think it's very worthwhile to have graduation requirements that enable any student to apply for a UC or a CSU, whether they choose to or not. Some students may choose to go to a trade school or community college. Some students may go to a career and then later want to apply to a UC, CSU. I think it makes sense to set a high expectation for all students, and then of course to have that conversation on how do we support all students. And actually, I think in math and science, this is not a huge shift. I think the majority of our students do, through academic counseling, take 3 years. Though there are some students that will need to support and change the way that they're scheduling. The big shift for us will be to go from 0 to 2 years of foreign language. Our students can do that, but we haven't necessarily been asking them to do that. And it's going to change the way that students schedule. It's going to change the way that we use our staff. So that's my recommendation. I think it is the right thing to do for kids. And then we talk about timing. This isn't something you can just turn a switch on and say, next year it's happening. It just can't. These kids are already scheduling classes. Some of these things take multiple years to get your scheduling to that requirement. I'm going to recommend that the math and science take place in the year 2021. I've had conversations with the team. I think even that, the math requirement, getting some feedback that there's a feeling that that's aggressive, but doable. And I think we just need to make sure that we're using the staff that we have to support those kids that need an extra level of support. And that foreign language one really is going to take this incoming class here to start scheduling, anticipating the need for 2 years, and we're going to need time to look at how we're using our current staffing that we're offering those sections of foreign language. Yes.
So we're offering quite a few CTEs. Some of them are in science, I think.
We are. I mean, we could almost say we're offering, like 7 years in that category, because students for us who go through the 3 years that we're recommending here, if you go through the 3-year science CTE path, it's a CTE pathway basically, what we're requiring. So all of our students are taking really 3 years of CTE, which is, some students are saying that, in addition, I don't know that we need to do that. When we say science at this point, we're only saying CTE, which is amazing.
Big jump, but at the same time, we might be able to get ourselves up to 2 years.
Yeah, right, they take carpentry. Carpentry would follow that as well as art, foreign languages, right? Culinary.
Yeah, that.
VAPA, yeah. Yes, Bachelor VAPA, Visual Performing Arts would be music, it would be drama, it would be arts, those types of things. Any other questions or comments? I'm going to talk about some other graduation type things, but when it comes to this portion, any questions or comments? Yeah.
So how many, that said, requirements, how many kids are actually doing A through G? You know what I'm saying? So already doing that, even though it's not a
I can
requirement.
give you anecdotal, and maybe Craig can add to this. I didn't bring the statistics. The great majority of our students are taking 3 years of math and science.
Right. So we're really not changing a lot.
It's not a huge shift in math and science. It is for certain students.
For certain students,
The big shift for us will be the 2 years of foreign language, just because we have not really been scheduling students in that way. Our students are very much capable of it. Yeah. And VAPA. Well, VAPA, we already have a 1-year graduation requirement. That is not changing. Yeah.
So the other kids, outside of Avid is, they gear all their kids towards A through G. They're doing a great job, I might add. But a lot of our students are already taken them. They just, it hasn't been categorized that way, I believe. The shocking part of it is that most of these kids and parents will not realize that they are not A through G eligible until they try to apply, especially if they're not in Avid. And I think that is something, because I was discussing this with parents, and they were shocked that that wasn't our requirement, that we have our kids prime to go out and whether tackle a job or go on to college, that we should have these requirements.
I think there's some validity in what you have to say there, Mark. Jeff's question is great. Statistically, we only have 6 students in our junior class, which is the 3rd year of high school, not taking math at all of the junior. So, and then almost every student is taking 3 years of science now as a pathway. In our vision, the vision for the school is all students are college and career ready. So it's either once you get to that graduation point, you have that option. You can go into the career field or you can go into the college field. But we've prepared them for either of those 2 options. If we don't raise these requirements, then we're not reaching that vision. And that vision is to be able to provide that option, like Michael said. I think what's going to change, though, in the way for parents' information is that some things that we started, and one of those is the four-year plan meetings. Our counselor met with all the 9th grade parents, and having those, she'll meet with the 9th and 10th grade parents next year, and then so on, following these 4-year plans through, so that, and then Ms. Server also did a presentation to 11th grade parents, so we did a great turnout for that night, but it's constantly meeting with the families and informing them and getting them ready. Even if they take those classes, it doesn't dictate if they're going to be A through G ready, because once they get a D grade, then they're no longer A through G. So they may get to a point where their senior year and they had a D in their class in their junior year, and they're kind of out of it. So what we've done as a school is that we set aside money and we pay Ms. Brooks, Miss Involvement science-wise. She stays after school 2 days a week, and we have them signed up for sort of A through G credit recovery, so they can take a semester of the class over again and get to a C or B or A level by retaking that class. So we're trying to capture more students who we might have just pushed out and said, I'm sorry, you have to go to junior college, graduate from there, and then transfer. We're trying to capture those kids and get them up to a C, B, or A level.
Yeah, and I appreciate, Craig, I appreciate your partnership. You and I worked a lot on this. And I would say from the staff, every single staff member I work with on this supports the idea. It's just that it becomes a matter of when and how quickly can we implement it. But I think it is the right thing to do for kids, and that is they share across the board.
Yeah, I think it would give more power to the statement of 100% graduation rate.
Right. Correct, and students, we're not going to give them that choice. We're going to hold every student to that level of expectation.
Right, it would be 100% graduation and 100% ready for college or career, right? That's the vision.
I'm going to move on, if that's okay, to alternative education. So while now that we're bringing this back, right, 10 years, let's have the full conversation on graduation requirements. And the majority of districts, they make a distinction between the number of credits that students are required to receive a high school diploma than from the continuation school. And that makes sense because that's alternative education. So we're giving students a true alternative path to graduate. And more contextualization here with regional comparison. This is what some of our neighbors do. You see 30 or 40 credits different. We have 250 credit to graduate. We require 250 credits. It's a lot. Part of that's because we have a 7th grade day. So that's where we're starting, 250. And I am going to recommend that we reduce by 40 to 210 units for students to graduate from Palisades. Most students that go to Palisades return to the high school and graduate. For a very small number, we need to give them an alternative means to a diploma as they enter directly into the workforce or into trade school. And then I did add some language in the first read of the board policy, also just clarifying that students in Palisades should have access to any internships, externships, or field trips for CTE that are offered at the high school. If they're going to go straight into college, they should have access to the amazing work that's happening around CTE over at the high school. Also added some language in English language development. This is really just clarification that the staff is asking for around a third year of English language development. They've developed a bridge class for these students that go through English language development level 1 and 2 but not reclassified. And this clarifies, yes, they can take a third level of ELD or equivalents, have it count towards English credit towards graduation. They still have to complete English 12 and the other language-rich graduation requirements to get it. And then lastly, I'm not going to read all that, but the law does allow for students to concurrently enroll in college while they're in high school. And we don't have a lot of these instances, but I did notice in our policies we don't have this policy. So it was important that we do have it. In the rare occasion that a student wants to be enrolled at the high school but also take a university course, we should have a policy on books. So we put a standard policy there, and it answers some topics. Who can take college level courses? When can they attain high school credit and college credit? When can we use weighted grading? These are things that the staff was asking for clarification. Can I get a good grade when this happens? Those types of things. So we just put a standard policy to make sure that there's good guidance for the staff that's implementing.
So are you hoping to bring more college courses to the upper part of the valley? Is that an idea to have?
So I can answer that. So there are two different things we've been talking about, which is concurrent enrollment and dual enrollment. Concurrent enrollment is when a student actually leaves the campus and goes to a college. And that's what this speaks to. And then we can have further conversation on dual enrollment, which we are very interested in. It's probably a different topic for a different day. Any questions on this, what I presented?
I don't know if you know, but we have a 9th grade student who's taking English 1A this semester. We got one of the highest grades at Seventh Junior College as an actor. The master, did they know you're like 14, 15 years old? And she's like, so this is an opportunity for her, and we needed language around that. So because if she was in an AP class, she'd get a GPA bump, right? But she's doing it through the college and getting credit for 1A there. So.
Yep. So you can read the policy, and if this occurs, it should be done formally with principal approval, board approval. There should be guidance as to whether or not that student should be given college credit, high school credit,
So seeing that I have the right man at the podium, in the LCAP, there was a statement that we don't have qualified teachers for the dual enrollment. What are we doing on that front?
Yeah, we've done a lot of work on that. That's a little bit of a different topic, but we've done a lot of work on that this year, and I think everyone is in a learning curve to how do we make those relationships work. And we've worked a lot with NBC on what their requirements are as a community college through the state. And so we're continuing to explore, do we have any teachers that meet their requirements as a state junior college, community college? And if we don't, are there other relationships we can explore with, for example, private college that may have different requirements? So we'll continue to come back because this is something we're highly, highly interested in doing, and now it's just a matter of how do we make it work. And it's the same conversation I think every school's having with the university right now. How do we make this thing work for our kids? Yeah.
Michael and I did have a meeting with Anglin, for UC. That's productive.
Yes, and we'll continue that conversation. They have a different set of rules, say, than NBC, but that's an ongoing conversation. If there are no further comments here, okay, I think I'm just gonna stand up here, because I might be left out.
Okay, so nobody else recommends, okay, so we move forward. All right, so we're going to 8.1, and we are reviewing. 8.1, board policies and administrative regulations, first reading. So the following are board policies and administrative regulations are presented for a first reading. These policies will appear on the June 17th agenda as an action item. So we're looking at BPA RC 146, which is high school graduation requirements, and AR 6172, which is determined processes.
Okay. 8.1, yeah. Paula, can you pull up the presentation? Yeah, so what I tried to do with the presentation, that presentation really is that, those are the changes that are in that first reading. That's pretty, correct, yeah, that's pretty, what I gave you was pretty inclusive of the significant changes.
And so what we just need to know is this is going to come back in front of us next month.
June.
Correct.
As an action.
That's correct.
June 17th.
Yeah.
So having said that, you guys okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so then Michael continues on with 9.1 with your educational services and teacher report.
So I'm going to give a presentation today for my report, and I'd like to give you an update on some of the work that's been happening around science textbook adoption. So we talked this year about it having been in the budget this year to spend. I don't know that that was realistic, and I'll kind of get to why by the time it makes sense. You know, I don't know if I ever shared, I was a history major, and I like to go back. I went back to 1998. It's going to go back to further. That's what we're going to do. But this is good. I think this is really important when you talk about anything. To really, to look at the big picture. In 1998, we had the California Content Standards for all four content areas, including science. And this is a time in our country when we were really focused on standards and accountability. We're still in that era. This was the first really set of standards for the state, including science. And those were in place for a long time until we get the Common Core standards. But those were only for English and mathematics. So in 2013, science comes in with new standards. It's almost their version of Common Core. These are very focused. Lots changed in science since 98. There's a big focus in engineering and technology in the new standards. And so we're teaching them. And then in 2018-19, this school year, we have the CAS, which is the standardized assessment on those standards. That test was field tested last year statewide, and then the year before that was select school districts. But very similar to what happened with Common Core, is happening with CAS, was the state's releasing the standards, and they're releasing the assessment, but no one's releasing curriculum. Which is a very challenging situation for teachers to be in. And our teachers, like everywhere, have done a great job of cobbling together resources off the internet. We've had some very small purchases to supplement. But teachers deserve to have good curriculum they can teach with, articulated curriculum. Kids deserve to learn from an articulated program. So we're very excited. Everyone's been waiting for this curriculum to come out. And so late November of this year, 2018, the state released 39, they released their list of 39 approved textbooks for science. So we're waiting. There it is. In February of 2019, we had a team of teachers, along with Craig, met. It's a really important discussion. They determined what our unique wants are in Calistoga. There's a rubric for what makes for good NGSS text, but what do we need? What's going to work for our teachers and our kids? So they created a document that spelled that out with with that document in mind, that team went to the Mentor County Office of Education, NGSS Materials Fair. There were 14 publishers and textbooks there, and they chose 4 textbooks for further examination. And then in May, we had those 4 publishers come to CES and present to teachers. And it was on Collaborative Wednesdays. Teachers had the option to show up. By and large, grade levels and assembly representatives, so there was good representation. And we heard from each of the 4 publishers. We surveyed the staff, and it was nice that there was definitive feedback. And this is just part of a much larger survey, but it was pretty clear. Our teachers wanted to take a hard look at Carolina, Smithsonian, which is a publisher, that does really just science, and then Pearson. Those are the 2 that they really want to look at. We also asked if you'd be willing to pilot, and we had 10 teachers out of that group who are willing to pilot for next year. I think that number's probably a little higher when we come back from the summer. That's great. We want to have a lot of teachers pilot. It helps give good feedback to the program, and it has a sense of ownership of the final product that you do adopt. So in July, that's my job. I'll take that meeting that Craig had with the team. I'll create a rubric based on that. And in the fall semester, when teachers come back from summer, we'll do some training to this group of pilot teachers on these 2 curricula. And then interested teachers will pilot both in the fall. So if you're interested, you will pilot both of those curricula so that you can compare. And then in December, those teachers will complete the rubric and they'll help us select a textbook. In the spring, we will adopt 1 publisher, 1 set of materials, and then provide additional training. So this is really, we're talking about K-8. I think it'd be great if we could adopt 1 publisher, K-8, though it's possible that our middle school team, our 6-8 team, will say we need something unique, so it's possible we'll have 2, so we'll see. Science is a different discussion. Their needs are really unique. The CT pathways are unique. They are looking at a product called Biozone that does produce a 3-course pathway. So they're looking at that this summer, but that's going to be a little bit of a different conversation. There aren't 40. The state doesn't really even approve high school textbooks in that same way. So there aren't 40 to look at. So I think we'll have a little different conversation with them. But ultimately, I think next year we will have adopted science materials. We can do the expenditure, and ultimately it's going to be good for kids to be able to have a articulated curriculum. So that's a little bit of work, a little bit of update on the work around science. Questions, comments?
Just have to say thank you. I've been on the board for years now, so that's a comprehensive walkthrough of how we chose curriculum.
You're welcome. We're going to do that. We're going to always use that process to some degree. If a teacher says, I know what I want, just fine. We're still going to say, we're going to have that meeting that says, what are our interests? Let's build the rubric, let's pilot it, let's test the rubric, and then even if it's just 1, we're not just going to pull the trigger and buy things, because you can have buyer's remorse. I've been through that where you have buyer's remorse.
We have that too.
Yeah, so we want to have process.
So just 2 little questions.
Yep.
First is, the teachers that are piloting, are they piloting both?
They are going to
Each single teacher will pilot both?
Correct.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I envision, like in the half will do one, half will do the other, and then at the quarter break about, they'll switch. But we need everybody to pilot both, so you don't just
Generally,
call.
the curriculum is the same, it's just the approach of the 2 publishers.
Yeah, they are. They're quite different. One's a little more experimental, one's a little more traditional, technology-based.
And then my second question is, obviously collaboration between the 2 schools is always beneficial for everybody. So as we look at the high school curriculum and what they need for the CTE paths, hopefully there'll be a conversation back to see if the science from the elementary is leading them properly to the science.
Yeah.
It's 2 totally different.
Well, I think they're quite different.
Yeah.
I mean, we were lucky to have Jeremy who kind of plays that role too, where he's in both worlds, Jeremy Grove. But I think science, the high school science team is going to have to, we're going to have to work hard to find something that really meets their needs. And I think once we find that, then we're going to have that conversation. How do we articulate a little bit what the kids do?
It's their needs, but then they're also regulated under the standards of the state.
Absolutely. And whatever they adopt will be standards
that Michael touched on was the CAST, the CAST to 10, which is something that, this is the baseline year. One of the things our teachers found is there's more earth science in there than they had realized, and so they're looking at that too, right? So how do we build that into these pathways where we have a life science into physical science, of course it's physics and chemistry, and have earth science be part of it. So it's something that's
Again, we're still looking at small, helps us with the adaptability.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Well, my report's going to be boring compared to Michael's. That was exciting. So this last month, we've been very busy with an LCAP and a budget adoption. I just want to take a couple minutes to let the board know that I met with different departments. I was able to go to a leadership team meeting at high school and talk about budget. Went to elementary school and met with Nicole and talked about budget. Met with the maintenance department and the athletics department, and even got to meet with our music teacher and got to go over the music budget. So I feel very lucky that I had the time to be able to go out and meet with our different departments. As always, it helps me capture everybody's goals and the importance of what they're doing out in their world. It makes it important to what I'm doing to help support them. We have a lot of summer projects planned. One of the biggest ones that I have planned is to do some shredding, hopefully with Paula. And we have lots and lots and lots of boxes all over the place that we need to gather, and know that it's time to get rid of the boxes, because we can get rid of the boxes and hopefully have a shredding company come and do a lot of shredding for us. We have a very big report to go to OPSC, the Office of Public School Construction, by the end of June, and that is to report on the $444,000 we did receive that I talked about earlier tonight. OPSC now wants a full report on how those monies were expended and what we did with everything. So my job in the next couple weeks is to go through some of those boxes that we want to shred and pull out all of the information that I need to now send to OPSC. So that's going to be another big job. And then the last thing is we want to advertise again for our bond oversight committee. We do not have any, I guess we have one member right now that will serve on the committee again. Everybody's term has expired as of 2017, but we are looking for a business representative, a senior citizen, a representative from a taxpayers organization, a parent in the district, a PTA member, and just a member at large. If any of you can think of anyone in the community that might suit one of those areas, please email me and let me know so I can reach out to them. And we'll go through the public notice too of trying to advertise and get some members of the community on the oversight committee. And that's it for me.
I think each board member should have
Maureen, I just want to say thank you for your professionalism in that position. I hear great things from a lot of staff, athletic department especially. Thank you.
Thank you. Under LCAP goal number 1, our data leadership team met today from 9 to 3. Today was the first day of summer vacation for all those teachers. They're very dedicated at the meeting. And we were able to establish district data protocols to implement next year to establish consistency between the schools when we're looking at data. And then we also had some time to analyze some of our senior high school math and reading inventory data. And I really do look forward to sharing the academic growth that our students have shown through the course of the year. So we'll report back to you on those year-end assessments in the fall. We also have 3 teachers who will be participating in the Napa Educator Exchange Program this year. Those are externships that are organized by a partnership between Napa Learns and the Napa County Office of Education. And the intent is for our teachers to immerse themselves into some of the Valley's industry and create a unit of study when they get back so that they can prepare students for when they enter the work field. So Amy Palma, Carla Serber, and Maggie Swarner are all very excited about their upcoming externships. They're assigned to different places. Amy's going to spend one day at Bardesano, TKRG, and the Napa Valley Wine Train. Carla is going to be entering the field of hospitality, so she's working at Embassy Suites, Silverado Resort, and the Burj. And then Maggie has been assigned to 3 different, the Trinchero family estates in both St. Helena, Napa, and Novi. So I've asked all 3 teachers to come back to the board in the fall just to give you a report on their experiences and how they're incorporating what they learned into the classrooms. So following up, Mark, on your question about bringing dual enrollment experiences into our schools, we were very excited to be able to offer a boot camp for introduction to health occupations after working very closely with Napa Valley College. We had many meetings recruiting kids, but unfortunately I was notified last week that we did not have enough kids to fill the class. We were 4 short. So they had to cancel it due to lack of enrollment. So I talked to Michelle Frank Morales just to say, what happened, why are we short students? And she said that they had recruited heavily. However, there were a number of kids who need to work during the summer, and we had quite a few of them who have to attend summer school to make up credits. So they were not able to attend both because they were learning concurrently. So next year we'll look at recruiting earlier in the course of the year and possibly holding the boot camp at a different time than our summer school, so that kids would have the opportunity to do both. I was also concerned that perhaps Napa Valley would be is interested in partnering with us, but I was assured by their Dean of CTE programs that they're very willing to offer the class again next year. Will help us with better recruiting as well. And we do have the summer program beginning this Thursday. Joel Kreiner is serving as a principal again this year. He did a great job last year, but he's become even more independent because this is the second time through. He's done a wonderful job so far. Thanks to the combined efforts of he and Michael, we're fully staffed with very strong teachers in the program and also strong support staff. Then under goal number 3, our promotions and graduations, I thought were well attended and wonderful this year. I want to thank all 3 of you for attending. And I certainly appreciate the efforts of the site principals for all the planning that they do in presenting these events. It takes a lot of time. And I want to let you know that Paula has talked to Gambit just recently, and she keeps bugging them to get updated on full policies, and found out that the first draft is supposed to be shipped next week. That will have notes and recommendations on that first draft, and they're going to need probably some further revision. So it's been a long time coming. You've been patient. We're expecting to be able to bring you the global adoption in either August, if we're fortunate, or hopefully September. Long waited. And then lastly, the county committee is meeting to consider the petition for the territory transfer on September 18th from 1 to 3. It's going to be held at the Napa County Office of Education, and I will be attending that meeting. I'm sorry, June 18th.
June 18th?
Yeah, June 18th. Yeah.
That's good. Tuesday?
Next Tuesday.
Tuesday.
And I talked to Josh Schultz, and he said that he couldn't guarantee that they were going to make a decision at that meeting. They're going to consider it. So there is a possibility that they might have to hold one more meeting. We're not certain at this point. That's where they will consider it.
Okay. Perfect. Questions? So 10.1 is a consent agenda, so actions from those from the consent agenda are deemed routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. There is no separate discussion of these
I can speak a little bit to that. So we had positive and successful negotiations. We tentatively agreed to a 3-year agreement starting in 2018-19. I can just personally say, I was impressed with the tone in the room throughout. We had positive intentions on both sides of the table. I was truly impressed with what every member on both sides of the table did and the attitude they brought to the table. We had an ambitious agenda, both sides. And so we spent a lot of time negotiating. We got a lot accomplished, but it was definitely, both sides brought a lot to accomplish, and I think we did it. We devoted a lot of time to it, so I think we're happy to have had positive negotiations and be able to bring a tentative agreement forward.
Nicely done, everyone.
Right, I'm just looking for a motion to approve the tentative agreement with CAP as presented.
So good.
All in favor? And then 11.3 contract with Massmark LLC, September.
Yeah, so a little bit of background. We currently do not have an automated substitute calling system. We do our calls manually, so what that looks like is that when a teacher needs to be out, they'll speak with the bilingual site secretary using Marcy or B and say, I need to be out, and then Marcy or B will start going down through the list and making those calls. And by and large, we've been successful at filling absences, but it has just taken an enormous amount of time for them to do it. And there are better ways, I think, to get this job done. So this is a contract with ReadySub, which is an automated system. Teachers will put in their own absences, and then it will just start sending out emails, texts, and phone calls to our sublists, and it'll make those arrangements automatically. It won't be 100%, but it'll be close, I think, when we're up and running, and it should really relieve some of the stress off of RCB, and I think it's just a better way of doing business. All the districts except Napa Valley Unified have committed to using the same platform next year, which I think is really advantageous. So if I'm a sub and I sub in multiple districts, I don't have to be working in different systems. And some of our subs have kind of been in that situation now where they're using a system, except for Kelstowick, who makes calls. So I think having some consistency countywide, it benefits the schools, it benefits the subs. I know we have felt at times we've lost out to with a system, you can plan far in advance and say, I can look at the calendar, I know a teacher's going to be out in 3 weeks, and I can calendar it. And I think by the time we make the call, someone's already set those up. So we're pretty excited about it. I think it's going to be much more efficient, and we'll look into August to have training. There will be some training needs for staff that will be minor, and then some more significant training for our CMP. So yes, that's the contract, and I do recommend it.
So I'm just looking for a motion to amend the contract with Massmark.
Motion.
Seconded.
All in favor? Okay, now 11.4, designation of CIF representatives to.
This item comes before the board every year, and this year, obviously, we're going to be subbing out Craig, who's retiring with our new principal role.
So, this is our motion to approve the representative.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? And then 12.1, which is filled in as board meeting calendars, if you want another board meeting next Monday.
No July meeting.
That's what I see. I'm not going to be in August yet. 12.2, upcoming events and activities. And 12.3, turn to future agenda items. June 17th, LCAP and budget adoption, and call to your presentation. And 12.4, we have no need to reconvene in closed session, so I am looking for that favorite motion.
So moved to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.